but nope, they shut the Cowboys out 23-0. It's just a flat game for the Cowboys. I'm chalking it up to that. I'm not going to downgrade the Cowboys too much, but just looking at that score is surprising. I'll tell you this, Andrew Luck's playing like he doesn't have a care in the world. He was so hurt missing that year and a half or whatever it was, almost 2 years, that he, he's kind of playing on house money. He's just kind of playing like, I'm just glad to be back in the NFL. Probably a little bit less nervous because of that. So I think that this team, they're poised to make the playoffs, and that's why we took them, sent it out to our subscribers at 100-1 to win the Super Bowl. About a week ago, we did that. We found them at 100-1. I highly doubt you're going to get higher than 20-1 right now, because it's between them and the Ravens, I believe, to get the wild card, and they are playing the Giants, and the Ravens are playing the Chargers. So it's looking better for the Colts. Obviously, you can start hedging that 100-1 ticket right when they get into the playoffs. That's one team that nobody wants to face. All right. Chargers versus Chiefs. Need I even talk about that game of Plinko? I saw on Twitter somebody wrote that. Yeah, it was pretty much a game of Plinko because the refs were so terrible that they've had to have makeup calls on both sides. And sometimes makeup calls don't even really make up for how egregious your call you either missed or the call flag that you threw that shouldn't have been thrown. And it was so all over the place that who knew what the hell happened. That's just the NFL right there. The rules are so bad that the refs don't even really know what to do, and it's hard for them to see when to throw a penalty and not. And so there's still edges on games, obviously, but that doesn't mean if you're a good bettor that you're going to be profitable, because you can have some bad luck and some variance won't go your way. But in my opinion, this game was poorly officiated. Browns versus Broncos, Saturday game. I was happy to nail this one. We gave out the Browns this week, and it was on the last podcast, and they ended up capitalizing there. You got to give it up to Chubb. He had 100 yards, 5 yards a carry. Baker Mayfield, 2 TDs and 1 pick, 188 yards. You got to love this Cleveland team. They're fighters right now, and they're winning games. They're motivated. They're not the Cleveland Browns of last year, man. They're a team to possibly be on a lot this year and possibly even next year. The Texans versus the Jets. Happy that my teaser's still live on the Jets side. As far as the Texans, they did cover their spread, winning by 7. So everybody's happy with that, unless, of course, you were on the Jets. But I believe that the Texans are a dangerous team, but I almost have to give the favorite to the Colts. And the Texans are going to win the division, but the Colts are now healthy, not unlike they were when they played the Patriots and a few other teams kind of in the middle-ish of the season. But the Texans, are pretty dangerous, but I just don't think that they're well coached. That's about it. The Vikings took care of business. The Giants got shut out by the Titans. Somehow the Redskins beat the Jaguars, and that's an ugly game right there. Probably not worth any time of ours, but I was a little surprised. I thought the Jaguars at home should have took care of a very banged-up Redskins team. Let's get into some of our plays for college football. So first, a little recap of last Thursday morning's podcast, because it covered the games that are going on this week. Today's podcast is for this Saturday, but I'll recap it. We lean NIU for the Boca Raton Bowl and under 43. You see, either NAU or UAB, whoever's the favorite, we lean to take the points because we believe that these two teams are just very evenly matched here, and it's just lean. For the Frisco Bowl, we leaned Ohio -3. Some money came on San Diego State, but we lean Ohio for sure. The Gasparilla Bowl, We lean under 55. It's Marshall versus South Florida. It seems like Marshall has got a lot of public money on it, but it's a home game for South Florida. South Florida is still a dog by 2.5 points. December 21st for the Bahamas Bowl, Florida International versus Toledo. We are taking Florida International plus 5.5 and the money line. And we lean under 68 points. We think that Toledo is going to be partying and possibly not being too up for this game the next day. And December 21st, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl in Boise, Idaho. Western Michigan versus BYU. We lean Western Michigan plus 12 and small lean to the under 48.5. All right, let's move right into college bowls for December 22nd, which is Saturday. So obviously the reason we give out these bowls a little bit earlier is because hopefully you can get them before some of the line moves, or you can decide to wait and hit the bowl right before the game is played to fade usually a public percentage of bets that come in, the day of the game. The Birmingham Bowl, Birmingham, Alabama, Memphis versus Wake Forest. Wake Forest is getting 3.5 points. Over under is at 74.5. Things been growing a little bit. What can you say about Memphis? This team had ample opportunity to beat their rival UCF, leading in both games. And then they played them and choked the game away in the fourth quarter both times. This team slightly steps up in class, I think, here when they play a Wake Forest team who somehow beat NC State and Duke in their last 3 games to make a bowl. I mean, what a great push. I think Duke kind of laid down, but still they beat NC State. Wake Forest's weakness is against the run. They allow 4.85 yards per rush, and being average at best in the rushing and the passing game themselves on offense. The Tigers are actually great at rushing the ball, 6.6 yards per run. But they also played a much more inferior schedule, I would say, obviously in the American Athletic Conference. Memphis is a top 4 team in yards per play at 7.4, but they give up a healthy 6 on defense. Now, I would factor in the stats more if Wake Forest didn't play, a much harder schedule than Memphis. I mean, they played teams like Clemson, Notre Dame, Syracuse, Duke. Wake Forest plays very fast as well at about 84 plays per game. But they're not really efficient on third down. I've been burned on a few overs this year because of their lack of efficiency. It's like a team that drives all the way down and then goes for it on fourth and screws up and gives up the possession, no points, and that other team has the whole field to go. So, that's how Wake Forest has kind of treated me. But, they're still an over team with how fast they play, Memphis plays fast against good teams, and I think that may force Wake into a kind of a one-dimensional shootout here, playing extremely fast. So, my trusty old algorithm, I got this at 76 points as a total. I don't have much of an opinion on the side. I guess I lean to Wake Forest a little bit, being in a tougher division and how they finished out. But, the spread's almost there already, 74.5, 75 at some places. It's not really bettable for me. But obviously, if I had to bet this, I think that this could get up into the 80s, this score. I'm going to lean over 74.5 for the Birmingham Bowl. The Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth, Texas. You have Houston versus Army. Army's laying 3 points. Over-under is at 61. There isn't a more perfect game for Army than the Armed Forces Bowl, right? Obviously, they should definitely have some fans there. The game's in Fort Worth, Texas, but the strange thing, it's not too far from Houston, 262 miles from Houston. So you're definitely going to see some Houston fans there as well. Now, Houston was a great team again this year, and their coach, Major Applewhite, another name that fits the Armed Forces Bowl, Major Applewhite, has done a fantastic job beating teams like Arizona, South Florida. But the important thing to me is that we can't forget the downgrade, right, that we have to assign to this team when they lost their quarterback, De'Aaron King. You know, the final score of their Memphis game was a little bit misleading with their new quarterback because they got a pick six. I do like Houston's interim quarterback, Clayton Tune, but he's going to be facing a much more disciplined defense in Army, I believe. And Army only allows 18 points a game, 4 yards per run, 5.7 yards per play. Now, we know that Houston plays fast, but Army runs the ball very hard and should be able to run the clock here and then control the time of possession. I think they're gonna pound it, try to keep the ball away from Houston. Now, I really do not care in this game how Houston defends the pass because they do a decent job, but I know that they have a decent run D, allowing 4.2 yards defending the rush. So 4.2 yards per run isn't too bad. I also think Houston should be able to stack the box a little bit here and force Army into some 3-and-outs. I don't like a side here due to the quarterback issues with Houston. I mean, they were a really good team, but I think that the total is the thing we're going to play here, and it's a tad bit too high facing an option team. I know the total went down pretty quickly from 67 to 61, but I still like it under 61 here. I don't bet any option team, over 58 points. I always stay away from that. But when you're seeing a total of 61 and the team that's not the option team has a second string quarterback that's only got one start on his belt, you definitely want to take the under. So I like Houston under 61 versus Army in the Armed Forces Bowl. The Dollar General Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Buffalo versus Troy. Troy is getting 2 points. You know what the drive is from Troy, Alabama to Mobile, Alabama? 3 hours and 1 minute with approximately $12 to $13 spent on gas. I don't think we need to discuss how far Buffalo is from Mobile, Alabama. Troy is a very solid team, getting 5 yards per play on offense and only giving up 5 on defense. Troy is very good against the run, beating teams like Georgia Southern, Louisiana, and Nebraska early in the year. They overall had a pretty easy schedule, only losing to Boise State, Liberty, and Appalachian State. And, Buffalo, on the other hand, is a similar team who gets about 5.8 yards per play and gives up 5.2. I think when you look at the skill positions on quarterback, you have to give it up to the Bulls with Tyree Jackson at the helm, thrown to Anthony Johnson. I think they're better there. Both guys are going to be in the NFL, both of these guys, right? This is kind of their final audition for it. The Trojans, on the other hand, actually lost their starting quarterback, Caleb Barker, on October 6th, and have since had to use a lesser Sawyer Smith starting. I mean, he did good, but not quite as good as Barker. So I think that Troy, well, I know that Troy has made many bowl games, and this isn't really anything new to them. Okay? And not much of a reward, really, I don't think, if you ask me. Troy got another Group of 5 school, not the champion, because they did lose to Northern Illinois, and they get to play in their home state. They don't get to travel anywhere. I'm not even sure if Troy could look at this as really a reward.